Welcome everybody to Frequency Freaks Workshop for November of 2020. I'm Paul Stillwell. Welcome back. It's, well, I wish I could see you all. I can't. The pandemic is ramping up again, and we're still doing our physical distancing. And hopefully these Frequency Freaks workshops are helping everybody kind of stay in touch and feel as much a part of the community as you guys help me feel when we're all together. And still, I feel it too, because, you know, it's not like we're losing touch with everybody. We can still keep in touch on social media and places like that, and that has become something that's really important to me personally, and I do enjoy hearing from you. So we've been sharing our home studio performances and tours every month for, well, since April of 2020 now. We took a couple months off in the summer, and that was a good break. But, you know, we need to continue this for the foreseeable future, so I need some ideas from you guys. You can reach out to me a number of different ways, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But, you know, if you have an in-studio performance, if you need help recording an in-studio performance so that we can get it out onto the workshop for everybody to see, you know, just reach out. And, you know, there are a number of us who can help you out with that. It's not too difficult, and there's lots of free software available that'll help you with that. So moving on, this month we have a discussion on work-life wiggling balance. How do you balance working, for those of us who have a day job, and a lot of us do, with having time to play with our synthesizers, make new patches, make new music, get new music out there, publish new music, put it out on Bandcamp or with a record label or wherever it happens to be going. So this discussion focuses on strategies for that, but also we go off in different directions and we get on to different tangents, and I hope you find it all interesting. So we had Sophie Mikalova, we have Heidi Chan, we have Michael Brooker, who are going to be joining me in a couple of minutes for that discussion. I hope you like it. For performances this month, we have Scott McGregor Moore, who sent us a performance from an outdoor performance. I think it's from his balcony. I haven't actually watched it yet. And he recorded that at 3 a.m. So hopefully he had the volume turned down or was wearing headphones so he didn't disturb the neighbors too much. And we also have Jeff, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce Jeff's last name. I've got no clue. So I'm going to put it here so that on the screen so that you guys can see it. Jeff sent us an improvised performance straight from his garage. So you don't have to have a fancy studio to do these performances. You could be outside, you could be in your bedroom, you could be wherever you want to be. We don't mind. You don't even have to show your face if you don't really want to. You can, you know, do the standard YouTube thing and put the camera up over your stuff and shoot down on your stuff so that we just see, you know, the famous hands. So next month, I think we have something fun for everybody. We're going to do a 3-module challenge. This one is with a bit of a twist, though. It'll be a 3-module or less challenge. So you don't have to use 3 modules. You need to use up to 3 modules and no more. Output modules don't count. If it's a dedicated output module that you need to use to get the sound out of your modular into a mixer so that you can record it, that doesn't count as part of your 3 modules, but you're open to, or you're welcome, I should say, to choose any module that you would like to choose, as long as there's no more than 3. Of course, you will get accolades and applause and acknowledgement from the YouTube viewership, the fewer modules that you use, but we'll see how that goes. It is a challenge after all. So a lot of you are making and producing and releasing all kinds of great music. And I want to make sure that we get all that great music out in front of people so that it can be heard. Because music is, after all, meant to be shared. So if you can reach out to me and send me the links, send me the information about the releases that you're making, the music that you're making, I will be happy to share it with the Frequency Freaks community in a bunch of different ways. We can do that via Facebook, we can do it on our website, we can do it via Instagram or Twitter or whatever. We have avenues on all of those different platforms. We can even send it out as part of our email blasts when we announce the workshops. So please don't hesitate to let me know that you've got a new release that's either coming out soon or is out, and I'll make sure that we get that out to everybody to see. So along with that, you need to know how to get in touch with me. I can be reached on Facebook, either by direct message or in our Frequency Freaks group. I respond pretty quickly, typically. I am also available by email. There's a contact form on our website, so if you fill that in and put your message in the contact form, that will get to me, and we'll be able to communicate that way. We also have a Discord server, and you can reach me there as well. Again, either by direct message or just leaving a message in one of the forums there, or one of the channels, I guess they call it on Discord. So with that, reach out to me, send me your ideas for future Frequency Freaks workshops, things you want to see discussed, whether they're tutorials, demonstrations, discussions, whatever they happen to be. If you want to see other local musicians interviewed or appearing on the workshops, we'll try and make that happen any way we can. So let's get started with this month's workshop, though. So thanks for joining us again. I hope you enjoy this, and please stay safe, keep your families safe, follow your local public health guidelines in terms of physical distancing. I know some of them are really confusing right now, but it's basically, at least in Toronto, stay at home if you can. Thanks. We'll see you soon. Hi, guys. Welcome to Frequency Freaks. Thanks for joining me for this conversation. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about work, life, and wiggling/sound creation balance, how we achieve balance in our lives, how we make time for practice and performance and things like that. But before we get started, we have our guests. We have Heidi Chan. And we have Sophie. I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name because I will do that poorly. Mikhailova?
Yes,
right?
Very close.
Yeah, okay. And we have Michael Brooker. So I'd like you all to just take a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves. Michael's no stranger here. And Sophie and Heidi shouldn't be a stranger to anybody either, although this is their first time on a video version of Frequency Freaks. So why don't we start with Sophie? Sophie, if you'd like to just tell us who you are and a couple of words about yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sophie Mikhailova. I perform under the name Sanya, so it's like regular Sanya with a J, and I just play experimental music, and I run an instrumental independent record label called Biblioteca Records, and that will be the very shortened version of my bio today.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you for having me, Paul. I'm excited.
You're very welcome. It's nice to have you here. Heidi, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Heidi. I'm part of the Toronto modular community. I used to work at Moog Audio, where I probably met most of the people watching. I currently work at Ryerson University as a researcher, and I write mostly modular music, pretty kind of experimental stuff under the name Bachelard.
Cool. And Michael?
Yeah, I've been on this podcast recently, so if anybody saw that 2 months ago, they saw my extended bio, so I'll keep it short this time. But yeah, I'm Michael Brooker. I have been in the modular scene since 2016, and I think I met Heidi at Moog. You sold me a lot of wonderful things, so thank you. I think I actually met you, Sophie, from Frequency Freaks, although I found out later that we both like to go to a lot of the same shows, too.
Yeah, we see each other at the late night raves back when we were still allowed to leave the house.
Yeah, Yeah, those were the days. So yeah, I went to U of T for jazz music. Graduated in 2013 now, and in 2015 I sort of folded my band and then started playing modular. And well, it was synthesizers at first and in the box production, and then modular. But here we are, and really looking forward to talking about how we balance it all. So thanks for having me.
Oh, it's nice to have all of you here. And you know what? I just realized I do these things almost every month, and I've never talked about myself and done an introduction about myself.
Oh, people are probably like, who's this guy?
Yeah. Who's this guy and why is he
Shows
talking
up
to us all
every
the
week.
time?
Every
Yeah.
week, and he talks.
Every month. Come on, it's not that bad. So I'm Paul Stillwell. I try and play host to Frequency Freaks, although sometimes it's difficult. From a modular or a synthesizer perspective, I've been doing electronic music for 20 something years. I got into modular about 2015 or so. I have a day job. I work in IT, in network security, and that's me, really. My band is, or the band I play with, is the Canadian Electronic Ensemble. I have another couple of projects I do independently as Intrepida, and then with David Sutherland as Not Your Average Worker Bees. And it all tends to be improvised electronic music, the main difference being the number of people who are involved with it. So to kick things off today, I think it might be useful for each of us to explain how our various situations vary in terms of time. Given our current situation with the pandemic, and many areas around the world are just about to go into another lockdown, or they're already in another lockdown. There's an underlying current of stress and anxiety happening, and it's something that I feel. I think most of us feel it as well. Certainly, the people I have spoken to. I think it's important to say that most of us are not full-time musicians at Frequency Freaks. Some of us certainly are, and some of us are making a living writing and performing music. And all this does is make different when it comes to the stress and how we're dealing with lockdowns and the anxiety of the pandemic and all these kinds of things. So for me, I'm really grateful that I have a full-time job that allows me to work from home. The place where you're seeing me right now is actually, this is where I work during the day as well, because I'm working from home, and this is my home studio. But I was self-employed up until a couple of years ago, so I can fully appreciate all the stress that everybody who is freelance is going through right now. And this undertone of anxiety, it has certainly affected me and my creativity, and in negative ways mostly. You'd think, oh great, I get to work from home. Now I'm sitting beside all my cool instruments, and I get to play them whenever I want to. Anytime I don't have to meet with anybody, or I don't have any deadlines to meet for whatever I'm doing. But that honestly isn't the case. I've been doing very little musically until somebody else pushes me. That could be my band. We've been doing a pass the track kind of thing, where each of us lays down a track and then it goes to the next person, and so on until everybody has had a turn laying down their track on top of it. Or sometimes I have a friend who just wants to jam, so I do that. But I need something that's going to kick me to get me going, and that's kind of how things are going for me right now. But how about you guys? Let's start with Sophie.
I mean, for me personally, like, I'm pretty used to managing my own time at this point. I stopped working 9 to 5 last April. So ever since then, I've basically just not really been in charge of my own schedule. I would work at a club Fridays and Saturdays sometimes, but those hours were not cutting into my regular life at all, because I work from 10 o'clock to 5 or 6 in the morning, and not a lot of stuff happens around there, for me. So I didn't really feel like it affected my, day to day. I always been fairly good at time management, I think. So I've been really lucky to have a lot more freedom to control it. Like when I was working 9 to 5, I guess I was in the same kind of situation as you are, Paul, right now, that I would come home and I would have all this cool stuff around me, but I just wasn't in the mood to play it, or I'd be too tired from like coming back from work, or, just being at work doing stuff I didn't really like that much. And it just seemed like wasteful almost, like an instrument wants to be played. It doesn't want to just sit there. Like it has a sole purpose, right? Like books that are ignored and a boat that doesn't get taken out on the water and stuff like that. So for me, my life hasn't changed too. I mean, obviously it has, because like I couldn't go to nightclubs, I couldn't perform live anymore, which was what I was doing with most of my time before COVID. But in terms of like having complete control of my own time, that aspect of my life has stayed the same. And I think I've been able to adapt more or less okay. Like, yeah, I've definitely been bummed out, but it's not as like really life-changing, I think, for a lot of people who were working and then had to transition to working at home, or had to transition to not having any work at all. So I do feel very grateful for that, for myself, being able to like already have that progression.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like our generation perhaps maybe is having a bit of an easier time with this transition, because like so many of us work in professions that are at least partially remote anyway, you know? And I mean, for me, like working in telecom sales, I was working from home before for years. Anyway, like I would go out in the field for meetings and things sometimes, or appointments, but I would initiate the appointments by phone and by email. So, a lot of that is business as usual. I think the only thing is on the weekends, it sucks sometimes, because those are the times when you want to reconnect. And like, for me, I felt, I would feel isolated from Monday to Friday, just making phone calls and doing video calls and things before the pandemic. Because as good as video collaboration tools are getting, and I sell some of them with Bell on the enterprise side, you can't replace face-to-face interaction. So I would get that fix at some of the shows we would attend. So, and so that's not there anymore. But then there's a whole lot more in my bank account now that I'm not spending money at all those events. So you can look at everything from two sides, right?
I agree with that. I think perspective is everything. You can't control the situation, but you can control your response to it, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You can capitalize on any situation can be an opportunity.
So how has this affected both of you from a practice perspective or a creativity perspective, in terms of writing music, composing music, sound design, practice, those kinds of things?
Well, I mean, I started a new job in June of this year, which I don't know how many people started a job during this whole thing, but I had to train myself. Yeah, you did. Okay, so you know what? It's kind of nuts. Like, was it a fairly new type of role compared to what you had been doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is and it isn't. Well, everyone knows that. Well, like I worked at Moog Audio up until mid-March, when Moog Audio had to close, at least the storefront for a few months before the store actually had to shut down. But
Sad day.
yeah. And so right when I got when Moog Audio closed the storefront, I got offered by Jason at Ryerson University to work with him at his responsive ecologies lab as a researcher, because I'm a grad student, as a researcher on modular synths. So
that's awesome.
So I think and before that, besides doing retail as a grad student, but I was also pretty much a full-time musician as well. So I work in music and performance. I play with a Japanese folk music ensemble. I do sound design for theater. So I was involved in a lot of freelance creative work before, but yeah, so at the beginning of pandemic, like my whole kind of everything sort of shifted right at the beginning. I got this new job, which but then it was still related to modular. So as a result, I went from having access to modular synths at a retail store to having access to modular synths in an academic lab research space. And so to bring it back to the second question about creativity, I still am involved in some creative projects. Like I'm signed on to work on a couple of documentaries, like writing music and doing sound
That's
design
awesome.
documentaries. I don't know how much of the modular I would incorporate, but there's certain things within my work, within my freelance work, where I'm always able to draw on a little bit of the modular stuff. But obviously, like now my day job is very much involved with modular synth, so it does allow me to stay engaged in it, either technically or intellectually, like thinking of what sorts of things what kinds of questions we can ask about practice and usage and the community within modular synthesis.
Are you working every day, Heidi, or is it like a once a week type situation?
No, I'm there like about like 4 days a week.
Oh, okay.
So
So you're like
into
pretty often in there.
yeah.
And
So
you go into the campus?
Yeah, so I think I'm
That's
one of
cool.
the few people that actually go into work, that has been going into work like throughout the whole pandemic.
Mm.
Yeah.
Weird.
And it's kind of cool to think that, I mean, modular and synthesizers in general started in universities and labs and things, because those were the only places that could afford them. Like in the 1950s, a single oscillator was like $500, which would be like
They still are
$10,000
now.
No, but like 5,000 of our 500 of our dollars, like it would have been 500 of 1950 dollars.
Right.
And like seeing some of these synth documentaries of like the what was it, the Columbia University electronic music department, and how they had like the most advanced electronic musical instrument in the world. But at Ryerson, are you using and talking about Eurorack mostly, or do they have some cool stuff there that they own?
Currently, we're focused a little bit more on Eurorack because it's a bit more diverse
Mm-hmm.
and affordable. But I mean, I'm definitely looking into bringing in other formats for research purposes. As a way to compare different like design philosophies. Like we're asking a lot of questions about design these days. We're asking a lot of questions about the relationship between the instrument designers and the community. But at the moment we have mostly Eurorack stuff.
So like, how has that affected you creatively? Like, because you're around it all day at work, and it is your work. So when you get home, do you even like want to play more, or are you still feeling inspired? Like, is it going which way?
Oh, actually, I've been playing more when I go home because at work, I actually don't play it that much at work. Like I'm surrounded by it, but a lot of times I'm doing other stuff. But then once in a while I have a chance to like turn something on and try something with modules that I don't have at home, but that'll give me an idea and I'll be like, oh, I want to try this with my own system at home. And sometimes I bring part of my system to the lab when we have we used to have a little bit more time in the summer where Jason and my other supervisor Kurt and I would have like one afternoon of sort of jamming with our own systems together in the space. So I can't complain about my job right now, really.
No, that sounds awesome.
One thing I don't miss, I only had to do it a couple of days a week before, but I don't miss commuting. And I find that like the extra time that I have from that, I can squeeze in like an extra, I don't know, for me I have to sort of fight to get 90 minutes or maybe even 75 minutes a day in, and I'll wake up super early just to get that into my day before I have to do my job, which, if I'm not careful, will just completely consume my life.
Do you do that now? Like,
yeah, right now,
set aside time in the morning?
yeah, it's got to be before work. I know by experiment that I just have no energy left at the end of the day, and I end up feeling bad when I'm using the equipment because I feel like I'm not doing justice to it. I feel like I have to almost bring my A game when I'm using my modular sometimes. You know, there's an element of play to it, and it gets that way when I invite people over, but mostly when I'm by myself using modular, I feel like I need to be very precise because time is so precious, and I want to get as much as I can out of these modules. So I've developed a couple curriculums for myself in terms of like which weeks of the next year or 2 years am I devoting to each module, and what am I doing in those weeks and things. Just very structured in that way.
So do you have that all written down somewhere so that you follow along with it, or you just kind of commit it to memory? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And you check things off when you're done?
Yeah, I just read. The text is tiny, but
Wow.
I don't know if you can read that, but
Nope.
I don't need to. It's a lot.
Yeah, so this is the second curriculum, but this one's about a 2-year path. It started in July 2019, and it's going to go until my birthday. Oh.
So what kind of stuff what sort of items are on there, if you can share some of your curriculum? I'm curious. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. So let me move this. You won't be able to see me so much, but you'll be able to see the rack a little bit better. And so there's the mothership. And so when I built that, and I'm not changing any more of it. I mean, famous last words, obviously, but
what is that, like 250 HP across?
It's
like a really long.
It is long, yeah. It's basically the biggest synth you'd ever want to carry around. Like, it's like the biggest and synth while still being portable because I can close it. I can put a bracket in the middle. It's this MDLR case. But what it is 126. It's 126 across times 4. But with that, I'm going, okay, anytime I'm only allowed to have one case, and anytime I add a module, I'm adding time to how much I need to do to learn it, right? Because if I'm going to spend the money, I need to do justice to it. It's like there has to be a justification for everything that I have in here. So that's where this curriculum comes from. Is the first 2 weeks was learning the Bafako hex mix and the hexpander, and what I've never really messed with 3-band EQs and things. I did like a little bit of DJing, but I mean, not anything this interactive. But then there's other things like disting. I spent a ton of weeks on disting, like this Erica Synths graphic VCO, and the Intelligent Metropolis, and the Erica Synth drum sequencer, and then writing documentation for them. So basically, like when I'm learning these modules, I'll create cheat sheets for myself and parameter grids and share them with the community, which we talked about in a couple workshops ago. But yeah, in terms of like managing my time, I'm really just trying to get the most out of only having like an hour and a half max a day to deal with. So I don't know, very structured and type A, but it works for me.
No, I get that. I'm always into having like a schedule and that kind of stuff as well. I appreciate that you've made a curriculum. I've actually like recently started reframing my mindset to go from looking at, my projects as work and more as study and practice, so that it kind of just puts more focus on that there's a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, and taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I
Like, it's
wish
fun
I
if you
wish
take
I
it
had more
seriously.
justification for things that I've way less structured. Yeah, I'm very not type A, kind of not structured. I think I see practice more as an accumulation of whatever kind of engagement that you have, and I think every one of those moments do accumulate towards experience and certain kinds of knowledge. But I think it's really interesting to see different ways of um, different ways of appreciating the instrument and the kind of experience that we each want to get out of it. So that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I fall more into the camp with Heidi there. I'm way less structured, and maybe been having trouble getting the motivation to do a little bit each day. It could have been the summer. I'm not sure. But I'm feeling more motivated just this past week as we seem to all be moving more indoors because the weather's getting colder out, not as nice. So that might have something to do with it. I'm not sure. I'll be able to tell in another few weeks if that was really something or if it's not. But yeah, I'm with Heidi on the style of practice as well. For me, practice is working with the modules and making something musical. I don't necessarily set out to, well, sometimes I do, set out to explore a certain aspect of a particular module. But very often that quickly evolves into something that involves a lot more modules and creating something more musical than just what comes out of a single module.
Yeah, well, that's one thing about the pandemic is that I was thinking about the other day is that you don't have I don't have a fear of missing out anymore. So, like on a
With
Friday
what?
night, like
Like
with
on life?
like events,
There's
like events.
There's
you know,
no
like,
events. There's nothing to miss out on.
That's what I said. I mean, that there's no fear of missing out, so I don't mind getting up early on a Saturday or something, or going to bed early on a Friday, because there's this feeling, at least subconsciously, of like, well, nobody's really doing anything, so it's kind of okay that I'm staying in on a Friday night or Saturday night, you know. Whereas before, I would have thought, no, I should probably try and be a normal adult and like go out and interact with other humans, you know. But now I have an excuse to stay at home and, you know, try and squeeze in an extra hour of modular.
That's
what
funny.
about while you're practicing? You know, how do you maintain your focus? Do you ever find, for each of you, do you find that your attention kind of wanders away periodically? Do you try and make sure that you maintain your focus and end on a high note, or do you just kind of does the interest in what you're doing just kind of peter out and then you stop and you walk away? How are you maintaining your focus for your practice sessions? Let's start with Sophie.
I mean, for me, like before, I used to do kind of like the same thing that Michael's doing. Not like just in pandemic, but in general, I would like set like a timer or whatever. I'd be like, you have to play for this time, or else you're not learning anything. But then I got bored of doing that, and now I don't know. Sometimes I don't touch them for months, not months, like weeks. And then I feel bad because I'm like, I spent all this money for what?
How does it feel when you go back to them after a break like that?
Honestly, nice. It also almost feels new because you kind of forget what it can do, right? You kind of forget the like capabilities of the machine, especially because, you know, it takes so little to like rearrange it completely and create a totally new sound from it. So every time you go back, it really is kind of like functioning as a new instrument. So it's fun. Plus, I've been getting a lot of other toys, as you mentioned before, when we like just logged on. So I've been feeling a little more inspired to practice regularly because I have all sorts of new toys to play with.
Well, some of those toys require practice too, right? Because
Exactly, yeah.
You know, some of them are actually, are most of them percussion instruments, or just a couple? The ones that I've seen.
I got a little gong too, so I've been practicing with the gong as well. But you know,
That's
it's
sweet.
just one cymbal, so not a lot of difficulties. Like if you can't play a gong, I think, you know, pretty bad.
Your neighbors must love that.
It's actually really small, and it's very weird. You put it in these hooks around your ears, and you hit it, and then you hear it really loud in your head, and you feel this vibration. But when you hold it up and just hit it, it's very quiet. It's really weird.
Oh, that's neat. So
it's a nice meditative instrument.
So if you're if you wanted to record that, would you have to do that with a contact mic or something like that?
I know. I'm trying to figure out how I would be able to capture that. I think it relies so heavily on being able to feel it that I don't even know if recording it would even be possible. Because I tried, I had a friend come over and I was like, listen, and it's just not the same. But it's hard to hit it though because it's so small, so it kind of spins around. Sometimes you end up just hitting yourself. It's a mess.
I think you should build one of those binaural mics with the styrofoam head. There's DIY instructions where you can use one of those modeling styrofoam heads, drill the hole, drill it out, and then put binaural mics into the ears, so that it actually picks up the way that you actually listen to it when you hook it to your.
That would be cool. Do the mics have those heads don't have ears though, right? I would have to
No, you have to buy your own
why not
piezo.
Why not just use your own head? The binaural mics that I have, they actually have little foamies on them, and they sit in your ears just like earbuds do.
I should look into that because I every time I play with it, I'm like, damn, how can I capture this sound? But I've been coming up short on ideas. So thank you guys, because now I might have to look something up. Maybe I can rent those bad boys from Long and McQuaid.
They're actually not that expensive.
Oh, really?
There's a place online. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I will search for it and I'll put it in the show notes down below.
Yeah, link me up and let me know. I mean, I just spent $300 on a drum, so I don't know if I'm in the market right now, but it's always good to know.
The ones that I got were way less than that.
Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, you never know. Sometimes something looks like it's not expensive, and then somebody's like, actually, the module was $2,000, and you're like, but why?
That's a lot of dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot of dollars for a module.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can I ask a question, Paul?
Absolutely.
And it's related to the topic of time. I've always, so for me, I have trouble sticking to one patch for a long time. It'll last for half a night or a tenth of a night before I'm I pull everything out. But one of my own challenges has been to stick with a patch for a week or months. And I recently talked with another Canadian modular user who posted a performance of a patch he's been working with for 7 months. And I was so impressed that you can stick to a patch and explore that patch without for a number of months. So my question to you guys is how long can you or have you, what's the longest you've been able to work on a patch, or what's your relationship with patches in general in terms of how much time you spend on a single patch?
You reminded me of Suzanne Ciani.
Right, because she uses pretty much the same.
40 years. She's been
40
exploring
years.
that
There
patch.
You go. Yeah.
So that's a long time. For me, the patch doesn't stay around unless I'm actually recording stuff. So if I've decided it's time to make an album, then or it's I'm working on a track and I've got a definite purpose for it, it'll stick around for a few weeks.
Yeah, for me.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were about to say something.
No worries. For me, it just depends on what I'm studying that week, with the whole curriculum approach of every couple of weeks or every 3 weeks will be a different module focus. And so I'll try and create patches that center around that module in some way, and then I'll record it and put it on SoundCloud. And so I've got a bunch of stuff on SoundCloud. Anything that I end up liking that sounds halfway decent techno, I'll put it up under Octavian, and so, but it'll always be named according to the module that is the focus for that day. But I think when I'm done this whole exploration phase, I'm going to have basically one patch where I have access to everything. I like the idea of like, especially with this hex mix and hex expander, where you get the 3 effect sends and the 7 inputs and stuff. I like the idea of just having it patched up, cables tied off, and there's a bit of spaghetti for sure, but you know where everything is. And so, because like a piano is already patched, you know, or like your voice, you can't repatch that. So like there's a thing of like sticking with it because you can understand the patch as the instrument at that point, you know?
How about
Yeah,
Sophie?
true. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm in a similar camp. Like, I think I almost get like too comfortable with a patch and or like a situation, and I'm like, oh, it just sounds so nice. Like, I don't want to turn it off. I don't want to mess it up because there's always that fear of like never being able to get it back with something so fleeting as modular synth and like any minor movement. Like sometimes I'll love something and then I'll turn everything off and then I'll come back the next day or a couple of days later and I turn it on and I'm like, this is not the sounds that I was hearing before. So I think for me, like yeah, I definitely get a little too comfortable. I'll stick around in the same patch for like time. I just get really into like, especially because like the last year or so I've been really into like drone noises and I just love the like long notes, all that sustain stuff. So I definitely get really, really comfortable like with the one patch and I'm like, yeah, like this is great. Let's just keep it going. And then I'll add other stuff on top of it. Like external instruments.
Like gongs?
Yeah, that's
like gongs,
that's a
yeah,
cool,
like gongs.
That's a cool way to go. You brought up an interesting point, and that's the nature of the modular synth being kind of ephemeral in terms of the sounds that you create with it.
Mm-hmm.
The sounds can just, turn it off, turn it on again, and it's different. It'll be similar, hopefully, but sometimes it can be wildly different as well. And when I moved from using software synths and maybe one hardware synth where I could save all my patches, that really wasn't an issue because I'd create patches and then as I was working with my band, I would just switch. I'd even switch synthesizers because it's software, right? Just change your MIDI channel or just select a different track in your DAW and you're playing a different instrument with a different patch, or sometimes the same instrument with a different patch. But that was something I had to get used to with modular, and you just eventually, I think you get comfortable with that. I have anyway. And there are times when I come up with something that's really cool, but I didn't bother turning the computer on. I didn't bother doing anything with the DAW. It's just coming out, and my partner Lynn will say, "Well, did you record that?" And I'm like, "Nah, that was just for me." Are you going to be able to get it back? Probably not. That's okay.
It is what it is, eh?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry,
Michael.
go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I had a couple things floating around in my head. There's always at least two. But the thing I think I might start doing is just hitting record at the beginning of each session and then just having it run, and even if I'm doing something very deliberate and kind of technical or clinical almost, of like if I'm just trying to hear how a filter works at different parts of the range, but just leave it recording, because you never know what you might pick up.
Yeah, I've been using more like, I use Ableton Live, so I've been just manually adding markers when I'm tweaking stuff, and there's like, suddenly it logs into something that's like, that I want to reuse or, go back to. So I guess like if you're recording, markers are always helpful, because if you're recording an hour and a half, like you're not ever going to sit down and listen to that. I don't ever listen to that again. Like I can't.
No.
I don't have an hour and a half to listen to it, but so I use markers for that.
Smart.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. That's a really good idea. So I think we're getting to about time, and I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for joining us. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, your passion, your techniques, and hopefully it has helped some people out there to maintain a little bit more focus in their practice and keep on making music, even though we are in a very strange time, and the stresses that are affecting everybody can, manifest themselves in different ways. So thanks a lot for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for having us,
Take
Paul.
care.